The suitcase had my full name written across the top in black marker. The problem was, I had never seen that suitcase in my life, and inside it was proof that almost everything I knew about myself was a lie. I found it at a storage unit auction on a rainy Saturday morning. The unit had been abandoned for years, and nobody seemed interested in it. I only bought it because the bidding stayed low. I figured I could clean it out, sell a few things, and maybe make my money back. At the very back, beneath an old wooden desk, I found a heavy brown suitcase. It was locked. What caught my attention wasn't the lock. It was the name taped across the lid. My name. I stood there staring at it, feeling a strange chill run through me. I checked the spelling twice. It was exactly right. I took the suitcase home, but I didn't open it immediately. I kept wondering if someone had made a mistake. Maybe it belonged to another man with the same name. But deep down, I already knew something was wrong. Before I tell you what I found inside, if stories about family secrets and betrayals keep you watching, subscribe to Family Betrayal. And just so you know, the faces, photographs, backgrounds, and visual scenes shown in this video were recreated or used only to help imagine the story. That night, I finally forced the lock open. Inside were old photographs, hospital papers, letters, and one sealed envelope marked with 3 words, "Do not tell him." My hands started shaking. Then I saw the date on the first document. It was the day I was born. And the name written under, Mother, wasn't my mother's name. I read the document 3 times, hoping I was misunderstanding it. But there was no mistake. The woman listed as my mother was someone I had never heard of. I pulled out the photographs next. In one, a young woman was holding a baby. I recognized the baby immediately because the photograph looked strangely familiar. I had the same tiny birthmark near my ear. The woman was smiling at the camera, but behind her stood a man I knew. My father. My stomach dropped. My father had died when I was 12, so I couldn't ask him what any of this meant. My mother was still alive, but I suddenly became terrified of hearing the truth from her. Then I found a letter in my father's handwriting. It said he had been ordered to keep my real identity secret. Ordered by whom? That question wouldn't leave my head. I spent the entire night going through the papers. They suggested that when I was born, I had been placed with the family I grew up with under circumstances nobody had ever explained to me. But there was one detail that made everything worse. My parents hadn't accidentally raised me. They had known. The next morning, I confronted my mother. I placed the photograph on the kitchen table and asked, "Who is she?" My mother looked at it. The color disappeared from her face. For almost a minute, she said nothing. Then she whispered, "Where did you get that?" I told her about the storage unit. She started crying. I had spent my entire life believing my family had protected me. Now I wondered if they had been protecting themselves. Then my mother looked directly at me and said something I never expected. "Your father wasn't the one who hid you from the truth." She reached for the suitcase. And that's when I realized she knew exactly where it had come from. My mother begged me to put the suitcase away, but I refused. I needed answers. She finally told me that the woman in the photograph was my biological mother. Her name was Elena. She had been young, frightened, and struggling when I was born. But that still didn't explain why my parents had raised me. My mother said Elena had disappeared shortly after my birth. Everyone believed she had abandoned me. Then she handed me another letter. It was from Elena. She wrote that she hadn't abandoned her baby. She had been pressured into giving me up because someone threatened to expose a secret involving my biological father. I asked my mother who he was. She wouldn't answer. Instead, she told me to look at the last envelope in the suitcase. Inside was a copy of an old court document. The name at the top made my heart stop. My biological father was a wealthy businessman whose family had spent years hiding his relationship with Elena. According to the document, I was his only child. Suddenly, the strange things from my childhood made sense. The relatives who avoided certain questions, the family friend who always seemed nervous around me, and the expensive gifts my father could never explain. But there was still one mystery. Why had the suitcase been sitting in an abandoned storage unit decades later? I searched the auction records and discovered the unit had once belonged to an attorney who represented my biological father's family. That meant someone had deliberately kept these documents. And someone had deliberately put my name on the suitcase. Then I found the final letter. It wasn't from my father. It was from Elena. She had written it years after I was born. The final line said, "If my son ever finds this, tell him I never stopped looking for him." I couldn't breathe. All those years, I thought my biological mother had forgotten me. She hadn't. She had been searching. And the person who knew where she was wasn't a stranger. It was someone I had trusted my entire life. I called the number written on the back of Elena's letter. I expected it to be disconnected. A woman answered. When I said my name, there was silence. Then she began crying. It was Elena. She was alive. I met her 2 days later. I don't know how to describe that moment. She looked older than the woman in the photographs, of course, but I could still see the same eyes. She told me she had spent decades trying to find me. Every time she got close, someone stopped her. She eventually discovered that my parents had been given legal custody, but the people controlling the situation had threatened her into staying away. I asked her the question that had haunted me most. Why didn't you come back? She looked at me and said, I tried. I never stopped trying. That answer broke something inside me. For years, I had carried anger toward a woman I believed had abandoned me. Now I realized I had been angry at the wrong person. Before I left, Elena gave me one final photograph. It showed her holding me as a newborn. On the back she had written, "My son. Even when they took you from me, you were never forgotten." I didn't suddenly stop loving the family who raised me. Life isn't that simple. But I stopped pretending their secrets hadn't hurt me. My mother eventually admitted that she had been afraid. She said she thought telling me the truth would destroy the family. Maybe she was right. But secrets don't protect families forever. They only postpone the pain. Finding that suitcase changed my identity, but it also changed what family meant to me. Family isn't just the people whose names appear on your birth certificate. It's the people who choose honesty, even when the truth is difficult. If you had found that suitcase, would you have opened it, or left the past buried? Tell me what you would have done in the comments, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more emotional family mysteries, subscribe to Family Betrayal. Sometimes the truth doesn't destroy your life, it finally gives you the chance to understand it.